Think back to Saturday morning cartoons. You were half awake, eating cereal, flipping channels, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, maybe early Fox Kids. These shows felt harmless, loud, silly, safe. But years later, something strange happened. Adults started rewatching these cartoons and realizing they weren't as innocent as they remembered. Entire episodes had been quietly pulled, scenes were edited out, jokes slipped past censors that never should have made it on air. Some of these moments were so controversial they disappeared completely. Others survived only as bootleg clips, forum posts, and did this really happen memories. Today, we're counting down the 15 cartoons that were banned, censored, or quietly buried for being just a little too adult, and why banning them only made them legendary. Let's start with number 15. Number 15, 4Kids era anime. Basically every show they touched in the 2000s. If you watched anime on Saturday mornings in the early 2000s, you were probably watching a 4Kids dub. They brought over huge shows like One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Tokyo Mew Mew, but they also rewrote, redrew, and censored the hell out of them. Here's the thing. Japanese anime often featured female characters in revealing outfits, bikinis, low-cut tops, short skirts. That's just part of the style. But 4Kids had strict rules for American kids' TV, so they literally redrew cleavage out of existence. They added digital clothing over bare shoulders. They turned beach episodes into pool party episodes and erased any hint of flirtation or romance that felt too mature. One Piece fans still talk about how they censored Nami's outfits and turned her into a fully covered character in some scenes. 4Kids wasn't technically banning episodes, they were sanitizing them to meet US broadcast standards, but the changes were so extreme that entire plot points got lost. Networks and parent groups at the time demanded that anything remotely sexual be removed, so 4Kids complied by editing frame by frame. Some episodes were skipped entirely if they couldn't be fixed. Of course, once fans discovered the original Japanese versions, they were furious. Side-by-side comparisons went viral, and 4Kids censorship became a meme in anime communities. People still make compilation videos showing how ridiculous the edits were. For a lot of viewers, this was the moment they realized how much gets changed when shows cross borders. Honestly, looking back, it's almost impressive how much work went into making these shows safe. But it also erased a lot of the original creators' vision, and that's what fans are still mad about. That was a whole era of censorship, but our next pick is one specific show that pushed the envelope with its costume design. Number 14, Winx Club, the magical girl show that made fashion a superpower. On the surface, Winx Club was a sparkly Italian cartoon about fairies who go to school and fight evil. But if you actually look at what these teenage characters are wearing, it's a lot. Crop tops, mini skirts, thigh-high boots, and outfits so tight they look painted on. Every transformation sequence showed the girls in glittery, barely there fairy outfits. The camera would pan up their legs, focus on their midriffs, and linger on their poses. It wasn't one episode, it was the entire show's aesthetic. The creators leaned hard into fashion and beauty, which meant a lot of skin and a lot of emphasis on looking hot while saving the world. Parents and broadcasters in multiple countries complained that the outfits were too revealing for the show's preteen audience. Some international versions digitally altered the costumes, adding leggings, covering midriffs, changing camera angles. In the US, Nickelodeon toned down some of the more suggestive framing in later seasons. The argument was that these were supposed to be role models for young girls, and maybe they shouldn't be dressed like club dancers. But here's the thing, the fashion was why fans loved it. The original designs were bold, colorful, and confident. A lot of viewers felt like the covered-up versions lost the show's personality. The style influenced a whole generation of magical girl aesthetics, and fans still defend the original looks as part of the characters' identities. As a kid, I didn't think twice about it. As an adult, I get why parents were uncomfortable. But also, it's a cartoon about fairies. Maybe we were all overthinking it. That show made fashion controversial, but our next entry took superhero costumes to a whole new level. Number 13, Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go! Specifically, Starfire's outfit. Starfire is an alien princess and one of the core members of the Teen Titans. In the comics, her costume is extremely revealing, basically a purple bikini. The animated versions toned it down, but she still wore a crop top, mini skirt, and thigh-high boots. For a teenage character, that raised eyebrows. It wasn't about one episode, it was about the character design itself. Every time Starfire appeared on screen, her outfit showed a lot of skin. The framing sometimes emphasized her body in ways that felt more sexy alien than teenage superhero. Some international broadcasts and later iterations of the show adjusted her costume, covering more skin or changing the color palette to make it feel less suggestive. Broadcast standards in certain countries decided that her look was too mature for kids' programming. Some regions digitally edited her outfit or changed camera angles. When Teen Titans Go rebooted the series, they kept her design but made it more cartoonish and less form-fitting, likely to avoid the same complaints. Longtime fans argue that Starfire's look is part of her character. She's an alien who doesn't understand Earth modesty, and her confidence is central to who she is. The debate over censoring her design keeps the topic alive, and a lot of people prefer the original 2003 version because it felt more true to the comics. Honestly, it's one of those things where context matters. In the comics, it made sense. On a kids' network at 4 p.m., I can see why parents called in. Starfire's costume caused debates, but our next pick turned an entire show into a fetish catalog, whether the creators meant to or not. Number 12. Totally Spies. The show that accidentally became a fetish goldmine. Totally Spies followed 3 teenage girls who work as secret agents fighting villains and saving the world in matching cat suits. It was colorful, action-packed, and weirdly obsessed with putting its characters in bondage. Seriously, almost every episode had the girls tied up, trapped in skin-tight suits, transformed into different body types, or stuck in scenarios that looked exactly like specific fetishes. There were episodes about mind control, body swaps, inflation, shrinking, hypnosis, and domination. The camera would linger on their tied-up poses, and the dialogue would be just suggestive enough to make you wonder if the writers knew exactly what they were doing. Some parents and critics argued that the show was sexualizing teenage girls even if it was animated. Certain episodes were toned down in international broadcasts, and some networks adjusted framing or cut scenes that felt too fetish-heavy. The show never got fully banned, but it definitely raised eyebrows, and the older you were when you watched it, the more obvious it became. The internet has fully embraced Totally Spies as the show that awakened something in a generation. It's become a meme, and people joke about how it introduced them to concepts they didn't have words for as kids. The stylized designs, the action, and the ridiculous plots made it extremely rewatchable, and the controversy only made it more famous. I'm just saying, if you watched this show as a kid and later realized you had very specific interests, you're not alone. That show was subtle compared to our next entry, which turned flirting into a full-time job. Number 11, Johnny Bravo. The show about a guy who spends every episode hitting on women and getting rejected. If you remember Johnny Bravo, you remember the premise. A muscular, Elvis-voiced himbo walks around trying to pick up every woman he sees. That's it, that's the show. Johnny's entire personality is built around cheesy pickup lines, flexing, and aggressively flirting with women who want nothing to do with him. Some episodes leaned into more suggestive territory, beach episodes, beauty contests, scenarios where Johnny ends up shirtless or in compromising positions. The humor was supposed to be that Johnny is clueless and always fails, but the constant focus on his attempts to seduce women made some networks uncomfortable. As broadcast standards tightened in the 2000s, some of Johnny's more aggressive or suggestive episodes were quietly pulled from rotation. The concern was that kids might not understand the satire, that Johnny is supposed to be a joke, not a role model. Some international broadcasts edited dialogue or skipped episodes that felt too focused on sexual pursuit. The character became an archetype for the clueless, overconfident guy, and years later, people started reframing him as a satire of toxic masculinity. Memes and clips kept the show alive online, and a lot of viewers who grew up with it now rewatch and catch jokes they completely missed as kids. Honestly, Johnny Bravo is way funnier when you're old enough to understand that he's the punchline, not the hero. Johnny was all talk, but our next pick actually showed what happens when a kid's show gets too comfortable with adult humor. Number 10, Dexter's Laboratory. The Barbacore segment from the Dial M for Monkey shorts. Dexter's Lab was a smart, fast-paced cartoon about a boy genius and his secret laboratory, but it also had a side series called Dial M for Monkey, which followed Dexter's pet monkey as a superhero. One of those segments, Barbacore, became infamous. In this short, the villain, Barbacore, a campy, flamboyant character, teams up with another hero called the Silver Spooner, who is heavily coded as a gay stereotype. The two characters are animated with exaggerated mannerisms, and the jokes lean hard into innuendo. On top of that, the segment includes a scene where a character gets drunk and vomits. It's a weird mix of adult humor that felt completely out of place in a kids' show. After complaints, Cartoon Network pulled the segment in the US, Canada, and the UK. The network said it was inappropriate for children due to the alcohol content and the stereotypical portrayal of homosexuality. It was never re-aired, and for years, fans wondered if they'd imagined it. Because it was banned, it became one of those lost episode legends. Fans traded bootleg clips online, and it's now one of the most talked about censored moments in Cartoon Network history. The controversy also sparked discussions about how satire can cross the line into harmful caricature. This is one of those episodes where you watch it now and think, how did this even get made? But also, it's kind of fascinating that it existed at all. That segment was weird, but our next pick took queer coding to a whole new level and got banned for it. Number 9, Steven Universe, the show that fought for LGBTQ+ representation and paid the price in some countries. Steven Universe is a groundbreaking animated series about a boy who's half human, half alien, and the team of magical beings who protect Earth. It's also one of the first Western kids' cartoons to feature openly queer relationships. Throughout the series, characters like Ruby and Sapphire are shown as a romantic couple. They hold hands, dance together, kiss, and eventually get married. Other characters like Pearl have emotional arcs centered on love and loss. These moments were tender, meaningful, and central to the story. But in several countries, broadcasters cut, blurred, or completely removed scenes that showed affection between female-coded characters. In places like the UK, Russia, and parts of the Middle East, networks edited out romantic moments or changed dialogue to make relationships seem platonic. The justification was usually that the content was too mature or controversial for children. In reality, it was censorship of LGBTQ+ representation. Fans saw the edits as erasure, and the controversy turned Steven Universe into a symbol for the fight for equality in kids' media. The show's creator, Rebecca Sugar, openly discussed the censorship, and viewers rallied around the original uncut episodes. For a lot of people, this show was the first time they saw themselves represented in a cartoon. It's 2025, and we're still fighting about whether kids can see two characters hold hands. That says more about the censors than the show. That censorship was about love. Our next entry, pure shock value. Number 8, Ren and Stimpy, and its even more disturbing spin-off, the Ren and Stimpy adult party cartoon. Ren and Stimpy was a gross-out Nicktoon about a psychotic chihuahua and a dim-witted cat. It was already pushing boundaries with its disturbing visuals and dark humor. Then, in 2003, creator John Kricfalusi made an adults-only version for Spike TV, and it went way too far. The original Nickelodeon series snuck in fetishy imagery, hyper-sexualized female characters, and bondage-style gags that made parents uncomfortable. But Adult Party Cartoon went fully explicit. Episodes featured graphic sexual content, abusive scenarios, and disturbing psychological themes. Several episodes were so extreme that Spike TV refused to air them, and they've remained buried ever since. Even on an adult network, the content was considered too much. The combination of sexual violence, disturbing imagery, and the show's already controversial reputation led to multiple episodes being canceled or never broadcast. The series was pulled after only a few episodes aired. The shock factor made it legendary among animation fans as the show that went too far. Animators still reference its wild, exaggerated style, and it remains influential in underground animation circles, but it's also a cautionary tale about creative freedom without boundaries. There's pushing boundaries, and then there's whatever Adult Party Cartoon was trying to do. Some things are banned for a reason. That show was intentionally shocking. Our next pick, it shocked people by accident. Number 7, Beavis and Butthead, the MTV show that became a lightning rod for every moral panic of the 90s. If you grew up in the 90s, you know Beavis and Butthead, two idiot teenagers who watch music videos, make crude jokes, and destroy everything around them. It was crass, it was dumb, and parents hated it. Beyond the violence and fire-starting incidents, the show was loaded with sexual content. Beavis and Butthead spent most of their time watching music videos and making lewd comments about women. They'd leer, make gross jokes, and act out in ways that were clearly meant to be satirical. But not everyone got the joke. Episodes also featured scenarios where the boys tried and failed to pick up women, often in increasingly inappropriate ways. After real-world incidents, including a fire that was linked to the show, MTV heavily edited or pulled multiple episodes. Some were cut for violence, others for sexual content. Networks worried that kids were imitating the characters without understanding that Beavis and Butthead were supposed to be idiots, not role models. The controversies only made the show more famous. It became a symbol of rebellious teen culture, and later revivals leaned into that legacy. Fans who grew up with it now see it as a time capsule of 90s MTV, crude, chaotic, and unapologetically itself. Honestly, the fact that this show aired on a music network at 7 p.m. is wild, but it also defined a generation's sense of humor. That show was crude on purpose. Our next entry tried to be clever and ended up way more controversial. Number 6, Animaniacs, the variety show that hid dirty jokes in every single sketch. Animaniacs was a fast-paced, Looney Tunes-style cartoon with rapid-fire wordplay, celebrity parodies, and jokes aimed at two audiences: kids who liked slapstick and adults who caught the innuendo. The show was packed with sexual double meanings. There's the famous fingerprints scene where Dot misunderstands Prince's name. There are jokes about conjugating references to adult films and sketches where characters end up in suggestive positions. The writers knew exactly what they were doing, and they pushed it as far as they could. Some broadcasters trimmed or skipped certain sketches in syndication when the subtext became too obvious. While the show wasn't outright banned, certain episodes or segments were quietly removed from reruns. Networks worried that the jokes were too mature, even if kids didn't understand them. The concern was that parents would catch on and complain, which eventually they did. The show's ability to work on two levels gave it a legendary reputation. Clip compilations of Animaniacs innuendo are huge on social media, and people love rewatching to catch jokes they missed as kids. It's become a masterclass in how to write for multiple audiences at once. This show is proof that you can get away with anything if you're clever enough about it, and the writers were very clever. That show hid its jokes in wordplay. Our next pick put them front and center and got pulled for it. Number 5, The Powerpuff Girls, the show about kindergarten superheroes that somehow snuck in a lot of adult content. The Powerpuff Girls was a cute, action-packed cartoon about 3 superpowered little girls who saved the city of Townsville. But beneath the sugar, spice, and everything nice, there were jokes and visuals that were definitely not for kids. The show featured stylized shots of adult women, innuendo-heavy dialogue, and scenarios that pushed the boundaries of what you'd expect in a kids' show. Some episodes included suggestive character designs, flirtation, and jokes that only made sense if you were old enough to get them. One episode, See Me, Feel Me, Know Me, was pulled for political and religious reasons, but other episodes drew complaints for sexual content. Different countries edited or skipped episodes when censors felt certain jokes or visuals crossed the line. Networks worried that the contrast between cute, superpowered girls and surprisingly adult humor was too jarring. Some scenes were trimmed in syndication to keep the show feeling safe. The mix of adorable characters and edgy writing made Powerpuff Girls feel smarter than other kids' shows. Fans loved hunting for the hidden jokes, and the show's reputation as edgier than you remember plays perfectly into nostalgia content. It's a show that rewards rewatching as an adult. This show is a perfect example of how much you can get away with if your characters are cute enough. The writers knew it, and they used it. That show was sneaky. Our next entry wasn't sneaky at all. It was loud about its queer themes and it paid the price. Number 4, Sailor Moon, the magical girl anime that was heavily censored when it came to America. Sailor Moon is one of the most iconic anime series of all time. It follows a group of teenage girls who transform into magical warriors to fight evil. But when it was brought to the US in the 90s, localizers made major changes to hide queer relationships and tone down anything they considered too sexual. In the original Japanese version, characters like Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune are in a romantic relationship. They're lovers. But in the English dub, they were rewritten as cousins, which made some scenes extremely uncomfortable. Other changes included editing outfits to be less revealing, removing romantic tension, and altering character backstories to erase same-sex attraction. Entire episodes were skipped if they couldn't be fixed. Localizers and networks in the 90s believed that American audiences, especially kids, weren't ready for LGBTQ+ content. They rewrote dialogue, changed relationships, and softened anything that felt too mature or too queer. The goal was to make the show family-friendly, but the result was a watered-down version that erased key parts of the characters. When fans discovered the uncut Japanese version, they were furious. The censorship became a rallying point for discussions about representation and localization. Sailor Moon is now seen as a symbol of how censorship can erase identity, and the original version has a massive cult following. For many viewers, it was their first exposure to queer characters in media. The cousins thing is one of the most infamous localization choices in anime history. It didn't make the show safer, it just made it weirder. That censorship was about hiding love. Our next pick, it was about hiding everything. Number 3, Pokemon Beauty and the Beach, the episode that gave James inflatable breasts. If you grew up with Pokemon, you know it as a wholesome show about kids catching creatures and battling for glory. But one early episode became so controversial that it was banned in the US for years. In Beauty and the Beach, Misty enters a beach beauty contest. James, one of Team Rocket's villains, decides to enter too. So he puts on a bikini and inflates a pair of fake breasts to mock Misty's flat chest. The scene is played for laughs, but it's also a lot. James taunts Misty. The camera lingers on his inflated chest, and the whole thing feels way more adult than anything else in the series. When the episode was set to air in the US, localizers decided it was too inappropriate for American kids. The breast inflation scene was seen as humiliating and sexually suggestive, so the episode was skipped entirely. It eventually aired in 2000, but the James scene was completely cut. Some regions never broadcast it at all. The banned scene became a legendary meme in the Pokemon fandom. It's one of the most talked about moments in the franchise's history, and fans still hunt down the uncut Japanese version just to see it. It's a perfect example of how early anime could be wild before localization clamped down. This is one of those things where you watch it and think, who approved this? But also, it's hilarious that it exists. That episode was shocking because it was Pokemon. Our next pick was shocking because it was so blatant. Number 2, Rocko's Modern Life, Leapfrogs, and the episode where a married woman tries to seduce her neighbor. Rocko's Modern Life was a weird, gross-out Nickelodeon cartoon about a wallaby navigating adult life. It was already known for sneaking in mature jokes, but Leapfrogs took it to a whole new level. In this episode, Mrs. Bighead, Rocko's middle-aged married neighbor, decides she's tired of her husband ignoring her, so she goes next door and tries to seduce Rocko. The entire episode is structured like a sex farce. She shows up in lingerie, makes suggestive comments, and corners Rocko in increasingly uncomfortable scenarios. The jokes are not subtle at all. Nickelodeon received complaints from parents who were not okay with a kids' show featuring an attempted affair. The episode was quietly pulled from rotation and rarely aired again. Some fans didn't even know it existed until they found it online years later. Rocko already had a reputation for being secretly for adults, and Leapfrogs became the ultimate proof. It's one of the most cited examples of a kids' show that was clearly written with a grown-up audience in mind. The episode is now a cult classic, and people still can't believe it aired on Nickelodeon. This episode is wild. It's not even trying to hide what it's about, and somehow it made it to air. That episode was shockingly adult. But our number one pick? It wasn't just adult, it was a full-on stereotype that got the show in serious trouble. Number 1, Cow and Chicken, Buffalo Gals. The episode that featured a lesbian biker gang and got permanently banned. Cow and Chicken was a surreal Cartoon Network show about a cow and a chicken who are siblings, raised by human parents with no legs. It was weird, it was loud, and it was full of bizarre humor. But one episode crossed a line that Cartoon Network couldn't ignore. In Buffalo Gals, a gang of tough, masculine women on motorcycles invades the neighborhood. They break into women's homes, trash the place, and here's the key line: they chew carpet. The episode is loaded with lesbian stereotypes. The bikers are butch, aggressive, and obsessed with pitching and catching. The whole thing is coded as a joke about homosexuality, and it's not subtle. After the episode aired, Cartoon Network was flooded with complaints. Critics argued that the episode was offensive, stereotypical, and completely inappropriate for a kids' show. The network pulled it immediately, and it was never re-aired. It's essentially been erased from the official Cow and Chicken catalog. Because it was banned, Buffalo Gals became a legend. Fans trade bootleg clips, and it's one of the most talked about censored episodes in Cartoon Network history. For some, it's a fascinating example of how far cartoons could push boundaries in the 90s. For others, it's a reminder of how harmful stereotypes can sneak into kids' media. This episode is a perfect storm of bad decisions. It's shocking, it's offensive, and it's also kind of fascinating that it ever made it to air. But yeah, it deserved to be pulled. And there you have it. 15 cartoon episodes that were just a little too grown up for the networks. Some were banned for stereotypes, some for sexual content, and some because they pushed boundaries in ways that made censors lose their minds. Here's the thing. Banning an episode doesn't make people forget it. It makes them obsessed with it. These episodes became legends because they were censored, and decades later, we're still talking about them. So here's my question for you. Which one of these do you remember watching live? Which one did you only hear about online years later? And what other censored or too sexy cartoon moments should I cover in a part 2? Drop your answers in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into weird TV history, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.